Welcome back to Paranormal Patio. It's been hair-raising horror week. It is finally Friday. This is the main event. The moment you've all been waiting for. Now, if you haven't listened to the other episodes this week, I encourage you, go back, give them a listen. There's a lot of good stuff and a lot of stuff that kind of comes full circle. Hopefully you'll see tonight as we talk to the man who needs no introduction, Alan Greenfield. If you do want an introduction on Alan Greenfield, oh boy, it's something special, let me tell you. Alan is terrific, one of my favorite guests I've interviewed. We've been trying to interview Alan for a couple of weeks now, and he's actually been sick. So his voice in this interview may sound a little gravelly at times, but it turned out pretty well. But just to give you an explanation, as if you've heard Alan before and you say that doesn't sound like Alan Greenfield. It's Alan Greenfield, I promise. And we talked for quite a while, and I think you'll enjoy it. This concludes Hair-Raising Horror Week. I can't believe I finally said it. I feel like I've been working so hard. It's finally over. I can finally rest. But first, Alan Greenfield.
You're listening to Hair Raising Horror Week from the Paranormal Patio Podcast.
Wanted to do that. Yeah. They should have done it on one of those History Channel programs. So, do you want the Statue of Liberty torn down? No.
No.
Why not? I don't know.
What a mess that, I remember the first time I heard that story on one of the podcasts that you had done. I just shook my head. Come on, people. You can't believe that that's their entire life is getting people to do that shit.
Yep, and I think they make a fairly comfortable living doing that. But those jokers irritated me for a variety of reasons. I mean, they paid my way to New York, which was where my son and daughter-in-law happened to be living at that point. So I got to have dinner with them afterwards. They paid my hotel bill and cab fare to the ferry to Liberty Island. But then from there on, it was an acting job. And, I had two choices: get back on the ferry and pay my own way back, or, go along with it. And I thought, Jesus, this is as phony as UFO hunters. And
Did they at least put you somewhere nice, or did you stay like a Motel 6 or something?
No, it was a nice hotel. No complaints about the accommodations as such. In fact, the best I got in that was from UFO hunters. The second time I was on, because they, for reasons that have nothing to do with the content of the program, they flew me out to Utah. Have you heard that story?
Yeah, I have. But I'll listen to it again if you want to tell it.
Oh, yeah, okay. This was UFO Hunters. I don't remember what year, what episode, whatever. It was the second time I was on, and I happened to know because he told me that Tim Beckley was in Arizona on the same program the same day, but for some reason they took me out in the middle of nowhere, Utah. But they were very lavish in keeping me happy, so I wasn't going to say anything. But then they said, okay, we're going to film in the desert. So I figured, maybe we're going to meet George Adamski's ghost or, something that actually has to do with hunting UFOs or whatever. And they get out to this site and they have their film crew and everything. And they have two vans sitting there about, a football field apart. I had some photos that they wanted that I was supposed to give to their investigators, the three guys, Bill Burns and two other guys. Bill Burns, who said, how can you be Jewish and be a bishop? I said, well, that's a Nick title. It's not a religious thing. What fucking business is it of yours? That didn't get on the air.
And the photos were just pieces of plain white paper, right?
I don't remember, but they certainly weren't usable on the air. I think they were plain white paper, and they were supposed to intercut, or whatever the terminology is, the photos that I had taken. So I was supposed, what they said was, okay, here's what's going to happen. They're going to, pointing to the crew, the three jokers, Curly, Larry, and Mo, we're getting in the other van, and they were going to back the van up and then pull it back up like they were just coming to meet me. And then, they said, you get in that van and drive towards them, and when the two vans meet, you all get out. And I said, wait, whoa. A, I don't have a driver's license, and this is a public street. And B, I don't know how to drive. I never have. Don't particularly want to. And they're huddle. Do you know how to start a car? Yes, I know how to start a car. I can turn keys. With the best of them. Okay, here's the new plan. They will already have driven to their mark, I'm not in show business, okay, and you just start your van before we say action, or whatever they say, start, UFO, and then when it's on, turn it off, get out of the van, recognize the people, and walk up to them, and they'll walk up to you, and you show them the really interesting pictures of the, whatever it was I was supposed to be showing them, interesting pictures of Mothman, Steve Schwartz. I have no memory of what the content was. And that's what we filmed that day, and it was like 2 hours, and I won't share my thoughts at the time with you. It had something to do with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I'm sure of it. And I never did figure out what the fuck we were doing in Utah. I mean, there was nothing about the program that had anything to do with, the Mormons or the unusually large number of UFO sightings there are in Utah, at least not in my segment. So I don't know. But after years of being invited on one of those things after another, I decided to bitch about it in public, which I did on my live journal page, which still exists, even though that's now a Russian operation. I don't put anything original on it, just bad-mouthing Putin things from from news cuttings and international newspapers, which I figure, well, that they either don't read English, or they don't care, which is probably the case. But I've been doing that for years. But back in the day, that was my major outlet. That was before I was on Facebook and MySpace and other things that I'm no longer affiliated with, as they say.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So I described pretty much, as you just heard, what happened on the Brad Meltzer's Decoded, whatever the name of the program is.
I think that's it.
They never invited me back to their fucking programs again. To which I'd say, I feel so deprived.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet Jesus, forgive me.
Yeah, I bet you feel deprived.
Yep. It's the most deprived I felt all afternoon.
Yeah. You're having flashbacks right now, and you're sitting there in your fake in the middle of the desert. And
yeah. I don't even know if they have those on YouTube anymore, but they did for years. So
I don't think they do, because I tried to find it after I heard the story the first time, because I just wanted to see how they framed it, and if they showed on screen that it was like undisclosed location in Utah.
It probably did show something like that. I don't remember. I mean, I watched it once and went, oh God, the memories. Oh.
Yeah,
The
I wouldn't want to
buffet
watch
was
it.
good. The buffet at the Holiday Inn was excellent. And the driver, the chauffeur, driver, whatever, she told me all about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
And I listened. I refrained from telling her that I have a PhD in comparative religion and they're on the list. But I said, that's nice. And could I visit your temple? And she went, which is speaking in tongues, I'm sure.
Are the Mormons known for their tongue speaking?
No, that's not their deal. I made that
So
up.
it's weird that she would do that there.
Well, she didn't. I lied.
All right, Alan. We should probably do some sort of introduction here. I realize that this has been going on for quite some time already. I don't want to use up all of your voice on non-related material.
That's not non-related. It's the essence of what ufology and the paranormal are all about.
Well, I suppose
According to Gray Barker.
in a sense, you're right.
Yeah. Well, it's what the television version of.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm afraid that is, when I was just getting started with this stuff, there was no public consciousness of it at all. It was a handful of people, and I could probably have named every single one of them, and knew most of them. But came the close encounters and interest in science fiction. I don't know where that exactly coincides, but then you start to get all kinds of stories that I already knew, some of which I had been a participant in, but and then all of a sudden they ran out of World War II, stock footage.
Yeah.
And the History Channel didn't have anything left.
Yeah.
So what do? They start doing, this is the pseudoscience channel. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. And they're happy. And I'm me.
Hopefully still happy in another venue here.
Well, until Hellier came out, I didn't like anything that was audiovisual about, phenomena, for lack of a generic term for the whole thing. I just call it the multiverse. Adventures in the Multiverse with Alan Greenfield. Hi. That's 3 versions of an infinite number. Okay, but Hellier was, without being nuts and bolts, it was straight up, because I've done a lot of field investigations, and that was the real way field investigations happen. They're like that, almost always. There's no one peak experience somewhere down the line, but there are lots of the aggregate is as mysterious as most people want to get, and more so than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it was good for me. It was kindly for me.
Well, sure. And I'm glad that Greg and Dana have not so much allowed that, but kind of, encouraged others to get into reading your work. And it's a snowball, because then you're you look up the Secret Cipher book, and then, well, what else has this guy got? And then you're off on your tangent now. And then from your tangent, you get off onto Gray Barker, and then we're right back to the Mothman thing, and it just goes on and on.
I never got off on Gray Barker, but that's another story that I'm not going to tell.
I read that somewhere. Where was that?
No, but there is a scandalous piece about Michael Bertio that mentions me that is utterly wrong. But, it goes with the territory.
I guess, yeah. You probably have had to deal with that a little bit over the years.
Well, I don't have to deal with it unless I want to sue these people, and I don't, because cross state lines, and I'm poor, and they may have rich attorneys. I don't know. And all lawsuits are a crapshoot anyway.
Sure.
Depends on the judge, and it'd be just my luck to get Judge Judy, as they're calling me. The new almost minute the Supremes. Remember them? They were great.
Well, I mean, I don't remember them.
Baby love.
I'm familiar.
Ooh, I need your love. Okay.
I'm familiar with them, but I was not born, so.
Well, I think they're still around, aren't they? I mean, the people, not the group.
I would think that at least some of them are still around.
Diana Ross is, she had a second career in disco times, which even people who were there don't remember because they don't. Mumsy and Daddy were doing strange things back in the 70s. Not always with each other, you understand, but.
So you would have been of that age.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
So, yeah, I'm gonna do an intro and then we'll talk some more because I'm afraid I'm gonna forget and then we're not gonna have an intro at all. So I'll do an intro and then we'll just pretend like we weren't even talking. So hopefully I can figure out a way to edit that stuff out. No, I'm hoping I can figure out a way to put it back in.
Oh, okay. Well, introduce me.
Yes. Get you a big swig of your tea there and
swig.
Yes. I'm from the Midwest. We do swigs. Swigs and pigs, I guess.
Home of the Midwest UFO Network, otherwise known as MUFON. That was its original name, and then it got, bigger and more perverse.
Yes, more perverse. That's exactly what I was going to say.
You and a lot of the members actually are.
Hey everybody, this is Christian.
My name is Dustin.
And you're listening to Paranormal Patio
during Hair-Raising Horror Week.
Welcome back to Paranormal Patio. As always, I'm Jason. It's Hair-Raising Horror Week, and we have made it to the end of the week. The main event, who doesn't even know he's the main event, Alan Greenfield. Alan, how are you tonight?
I'm the main event. That's what matters. And I didn't know it in advance, but I want to thank the Academy and all of the people who had something to do with making this great evening possible. Oh, there he is, Mr. Universe. Okay, I'm done.
Flashback to reality.
You're talking to the wrong guy, dude.
You are welcome. I'm the only person that you need to thank because it's been a one-man operation, so you're welcome.
That's what they all say in St. Petersburg. Oh, yes, we are American citizens united for Trump. Trump. And they seem to all have the same voice.
Both literally and
figuratively. That's a horrible word. Okay. So much for Russia and Trump. Let's get on to real stuff.
Yeah. Let's do indeed, because I know I have heard some of your stories over the years from various interviews, and some of them just struck me as this would be perfect if I could get you to retell them. I know you've probably told them 100 times, and I've kind of given you what I was looking for. I don't want to spoil it with my boring version, so whenever you're ready.
Well, you know the game Telephone that people play in camp back when there were camps before COVID? By the time you get the story and you don't get it from the originator, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger most of the time, but it certainly gets distorted. However, most of mine seem to have survived in intact form for one reason or another. And there are a couple that I've never told. I mean, there was the ghost in my kitchen, actually my parents' kitchen, which is about 2.5 blocks from where I sit right now, coincidentally. And there was the reasonably well documented ghost of Christ Church on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, which I took a picture of, and it's a repeater. So that's probably the easiest way to get a picture. But those are, if you want to fish up my ancient website, which has been revamped by a very talented person, because I have no talent in those directions. A 15th generation version of the photo of the ghost is up there.
I will do that. I will add it into all the many links that I will be supplying, no doubt, by the end of this conversation.
No doubt. So you want me to tell the Mount Arabia story, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I keep hearing that song about what the little pigs do in the forest when nobody's looking. It was a kid's show when I was a kid, but that was like 200 years ago, so I'll leave that alone. But it's about ghosties in the woods. So anyway, I first have to give a little background that Arabia Mountain, notwithstanding the name, is in DeKalb County, Georgia, which is now part of Atlanta, the ever-expanding tendrils of which have long since engulfed that area. But when I first started to go out there, it was totally unknown as opposed to now, which is mostly unknown, which is fine with me. Arabia Mountain is a very, very spooky place. It's a 3 million-year-old monadnock. Took me a long time to learn to pronounce that one, and I still don't know exactly what it means, but I think it's sometime long, long ago, in the time of the dinosaurs or earlier, it bubbled up from the magma and has, of course, weathered over the millennia, but it's still a very spooky place. It's an exposed granite-looking, it's called a mountain, but I would call it a high hill. Almost nothing grows on it, not surprisingly, but it has pools that hold rainwater, and there are forms of life over the centuries that have adopted there. So there are some that are unique to Arabia Mountain. And the only way I ever heard about it was I think I was in the 6th grade or something, and it was a popular place for field trips, so you could see the flora and fauna of a weird place. And
sure,
it is sufficiently weird that the people that make the Pet Cemetery movies film Pet Cemetery 2, the external shots on Arabia Mountain, seeing as how it looks like a pet cemetery or a human cemetery. It looks like a spooky place, and indeed it is. So anyway, around 1980, a group of friends and I decided that we were going to experiment with we were at that time researching the Carlos Castaneda Don Juan material, and we wanted to do vision quests on Arabian Mountain. It's now illegal to go up Arabian Mountain at night. Wasn't then. And so we did almost all of our work on solstices and equinoxes, doing a vision quest for each. And it mostly really late at night, with a bonfire in one of the empty depressions on the mountain, and we had a different theme at different times. So on this particular occasion, I believe it was autumn equinox 1982, a long time ago, when I was barely a kid, but that's a lie. So we decided first we were going to do an invocation of Pan, and what better to use than Aleister Crowley's Hymn to Pan, the probably, arguably, the one really good poem that he ever wrote. And, they're going to throw stones at me for that one. And, and I was going to countercharge that with the Charge of the Star Goddess, which I think was written by Frater Akkad. Anyway, there was a guy, his name was Ken King, who's probably still alive somewhere on the planet. And he was the one who did the invocation of Pan. And he was terrific. I mean, it was so good. There's no way I could even reproduce Yo Pan, Yo Pan. We were all in rapt attention. And then I went, Hymn to the Star Goddess. The Star Goddess is, and it was, how shall I put it? I'm a pretty good orator, but it was lame by comparison. And I thought, at the time, I didn't say anything because we were on our way out to the mountain. I didn't want to, frame things because Vision Quest is Vision Quest. But I thought, this is unbalanced. And if I know anything about magical practice, it is do things in balance or you risk things going horribly wrong, especially at midnight on Arabia Mountain, which had gotten us labeled as Satanists. None of us were. But the locals would see the bonfires at solstices and equinoxes, and they would say, the Satanists go out there on the mountain that was only known as a makeout spot to the local communities in what was still fairly rural Georgia. And so we climbed the mountain together. Some of the guys, some of the people, because, one girl, 5 guys, I think it was, built a bonfire. And then, as per custom, we were each supposed to go off and do our own vision quest. Well, I went off and did my vision quest, and it was like all vision quests. There's something to be said for it, but it was nothing that I should write home or tell the rapt attention of the people listening to Paranormal Patio would, find all that interesting. I just laid down in a little copse of woods, which is mostly used as a restroom, frankly, because it's the mountain. And I fell through a door, a big rectangular white door. And as usual, when I get really close to the occult, I panicked, so I was immediately back where I was. And I went back up to the fire, and other people were dancing around the fire or vision questing each other, or, going, we all see it. And I noticed that one person, the smallest guy, younger brother of Bishop Oscar Sampson Orion of sainted memory, who died as he lived, driving a car up a tree at 120 miles an hour. Yes, there was a time when Bishop Oscar was known to every motorcycle policeman in the city of Atlanta by name, by first name. Oh, Sam, you again. He almost got me killed, almost got my son killed, almost got my then wife killed because he had no night vision, and he apparently came to a fork in the road, which left fork, right fork. He took the middle one. Unfortunately, there wasn't one. So anyway, it was his brother missing. So I decided to go off into the dark, and it is pitch dark. I mean, in fact, one of the phenomena of Arabia Mountain at night, which of course is forbidden to people now, and for many years it has been. If you lay down flat at the top of the mountain, it's not a peak, it's in a sort of a more or less flat surface, and look up, all around you is total black. And on a good night, which this happened to have been, above you is the star-studded sky, much better than you can see from most urban areas, which it was only then starting to become. You fall into the sky. It's the only way I can describe it. So did that for a while. Still no younger brother. So I went off into the thick Stygian darkness and wandered around, and I came to this rock outcropping, of which there are several, and there was a kind of a niche under the rock. And I could see something glowing. It looked like a cigarette, but none of these people smoked. So, it was that kind of glow, though, just for a reference. Mm-hmm. And those listeners who now have to reach for their pack need to ask themselves, is this really what I want to be controlled by? But that's just a side sermon from the bishop, the Jewish bishop. But in all seriousness, I look underneath, and the guy is there, and his eyes are glowing red. So first thing, I didn't have a flashlight with me, I don't think, but it certainly wasn't turned on him if I did. And I doubt that I had a flashlight because I had been going up there for decades at that point. I didn't really, need a flashlight under most circumstances. So I get a closer look at him, and he's just sitting there just trying to bite his claws, not hands, claws. And I said, hey, I'm not going to mention his name because it's sort of, he now has a doctorate in something or other, and I think, it's scientifically related, so, but we'll call him H, Brother H, as opposed to Commander X, who's a totally different guy, I think.
Hopefully.
He is. He's actually sort of a straight-laced science type, but had then a healthy interest in altered states of consciousness. For a while, he was I think after this, long after this, he was a follower of Bhagavan Sri Rajneesh, the enlightened one from Oregon. And he then became disillusioned after the guy bought his 100th, what was it, Mercedes limos, or was it Rolls Royces? I think there was some point to that, but I'm not sure what it was. Anyway, so I get a closer look, and I don't think it was a moon out that night, now that I think about it at all. But I was, like, I would almost sit as close to him as I am to you right now, but that kind of really defeats the purpose. Let's say 4 feet away. And I was keeping my distance because he was acting really, really weird. So I said, H, are you all right? And he looked at me with those glowing eyes, and then I noticed his ears had turned pointy. He did not have pointy ears, but he did that night. And replying to, are you all right? He said, I will quote as best I can. No. Okay. I said, okay. Is there anything I can do? No. Would you like me to take you back up to the bonfire? Do you remember the bonfire? Yes. So I took the Goatfoot God up to his brother, and I said, this is your problem. So they put him, this is before he got violent. They put him, they were all into the New Agey stuff of that period, which was a different New Agey stuff from later and earlier. His brother was a graduate of the Atlanta School of Massage, so he did a little, calming work. It didn't do anything. The guy was not the guy. And by the way, he remembers nothing of this, or at least the last time I talked to him, which has been some years, remembers nothing of what I'm saying, but doesn't discount it at all. And so we all saw it. I mean, and somebody came up with the idea, well, maybe we should take him home. And my instinct was, well, the Mount Arabia has magical properties, and I'm sure it contributed to this transformation, but I'm also reasonably sure there's a certain amount of protectiveness about this. If we take him away from the mountain, he is likely to do some unpleasant things. This was not within his earshot, or whatever you call pointy Vulcan ears. But the majority prevailed. We took him down the mountain, got in the car. I should mention that my then girlfriend, this was her first time out there. Not her last, but her first. And at some point, H started to get what Pan's reputation is all about, and started to lunge at her. And he's a little guy, and his frame didn't change in stature or anything. But honestly, 3 grown men, one of whom was a bodybuilder and none of whom were anything less than fit. It took 3, maybe 4 of us to restrain him from jumping on girlfriend.
Wow.
And she was in the back seat with me, and they were holding him, and he was, going through all of these sort of things, like if you've ever seen I'm sure you have, the 1930s Lon Chaney Jr. version of Wolfman.
Yeah.
He was going through the reverse role, where he was starting to become human again. But the more human he became, the more violent he became. So it was just, sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I had this moment of thinking, let's toss him out of the car and let the cops take care of it. Because he was grabbing for her, and, you know, one of the people holding him was the driver. So if he got over the seat at all, I would have to push back on him. And he kept snapping at his own hands if he couldn't bite anything else. And he finally lunged so much that it didn't get away from our control completely, but he got right in her face, looked at her, and said, "You're not even Denise." Which Denise was a mutual friend of ours, which my girlfriend was probably somewhere between relieved and insulted by. And it went on until dawn. What we did was we took him to my apartment, and Bishop Orion was then in the end of his course at the Atlanta School of Massage. So he had a massage table there to practice on, mostly on me. And he was into the really deep tissue stuff. And I don't know about now, but when I was younger, I could take a lot of pressure without being uncomfortable. I once thought about getting Rolfed, and look it up if you don't know what it is. It was a trendy structural realignment technique. In other words, you were half an inch taller.
Oh, yeah.
By the time you got through with it. And anyway, so he put him on the massage table. By then he had wet his pants, so he... I'm not going to go into any gory details. At dawn, all traces of Pan were gone. From that lesson, I inferred, I was down with everything that was going on in Hellier. And then they said, okay, we're going to invoke Pan in a mine shaft. Live on TV. And I thought, this is going to be one of those found footage things, you know? Suddenly the camera will be facing the ceiling, and you'll hear rustling sounds, and you'll hear the voice of Pan. But fortunately for them, in my opinion, this is my take on it at all, not theirs, because they're gold, in my opinion. They had been asking for days, to find Indrid Cold. And magic works very specifically. So if you say, I'm looking for Indrid Cold, let's do an invocation of Pan. What they got was, they all got cold. Yeah. And I thought, well, they got what they asked for, and not what they were calling. And, but I was relieved because, you certainly can invoke Pan. And if you do, putting him back in the bottle, to mix my metaphors, is, difficult, because the word panic doesn't derive from Pan for nothing.
Right.
And that's the story of Arabia. I do want to clarify this. These workings were all in the early 1980s and were discontinued circa 1985 when they started to, there was no parking lot in those days, but there was a niche where people parked their cars, and the county sheriff, I guess, was too lazy to climb the mountain, so he put on his bullhorn and said, ladies and gentlemen, the mountain is closed. The mountain is closed. I thought, well, I had gone, to grad school in the University of Arizona, and I had a favorite place, Sabino Canyon, and they closed the canyon at night, and I had these, we went out there to do meditation stuff. I had these visions of the walls of the canyon closing in on the people that remained out there. It's just some of the logic of institutional America. But so that is distinct from what you may have heard something about, which is the recently concluded, that is from, 2006 to 2019, Great Arabia Working, which was a series of empowerments done on that same rock called Consecration Rock, or somebody dubbed it that, or I did. I don't know. It's been a long time. To do empowerments of various magical sorts on Arabian Mountain, free for nothing, which is what we do, except where books are concerned. Books are a serious matter. That's our livelihood, and we're lively folks. But getting back to the point, that working is relatively famous because people came for those empowerments from all over the world. I mean, we literally had people coming up from as far south as Ecuador and as far east as, somewhere in the Viking country, Norway or Denmark or one of those really, really, really cold places. And some repeaters from Europe as well. So we had, and a lot of local people, and we eventually reached the point, as we had in the 80s working, feeling that we had done our bit and time to move on to the next thing. But Arabia is still there and is still a very magical place. But I wouldn't recommend the hymn to Pan at that particular location at that particular time.
Yeah, absolutely not. Go back to Hellier a little bit. Could you imagine if Tyler Strand would have become the H in that group? It would have been a nightmare.
But you've got it correct. Yeah, Tyler has a bit of the old woodland god in him.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
And he's not, he's not a little guy.
No.
And I'm not sure if any of them were really prepared for that, because they apparently weren't prepared for the cult they almost encountered in whatever the name of that town is in Kentucky. So, in fact, my comment to them was, you were there and you were not heavily armed. After what even the local, occult person with the museum and the other occult person who really knew their stuff, which is surprising in a really small town, although that happens, there are some experts out in the boonies. There are some, and I think a cop also told them, frankly, this town is really weird.
Yeah.
Could you, officer, loan me your throwaway backup you got in your boot? Because I think we might need it during the course of our investigation. What throwaway backup, boy? Tuck us out of our town. You hear?
Yeah. Probably how it would have
Which is what Tyler got,
Yeah.
He got escorted by the local constabulary to the borders of the county or the state. I don't know.
The state, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what was said. I have heard county too, which either way, it's a wonderful story and a comment on big city slicker folks coming into a little town and saying, where are your ghosts and demons and goblins? Well, the goblins are down here at the courthouse in the basement, and if you follow me, I'll get you a free room down there.
It's also... Go ahead.
It depends how you approach it. It's like all these people had approached the family of the final frontal chief of the original Hermetic Brotherhood of Light, which was in White County, Georgia, which is now kind of absorbed into the little town of Cleveland, Georgia. And these people, sincere, some of them I know, but, sort of theosophical researchers. I don't mean that as a pejorative. There are lots of things I'm pejorative about, like, the Scientologists and other fascist organizations. But the only criticism I have of theosophy per se is in its early days it had a racist bias, but then so did the OTO, so did, lots of, it was part of the times, and that doesn't excuse it, but it does explain it sort of, maybe almost. Nobody was woke in 1910,
Right. Only
They
for
were
breakfast.
They were all walking in their sleep.
Yeah.
Many of them have yet to wake up. So.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Sleep on, tigers. Sleep deep. Deep sleep. Take those deep breaths and buy the complete secret cipher of the Euphonauts. You can't do without it. It can be bought at all those online booksellers that aren't nailed down. Wake up. Okay.
Wow.
And as I was saying, what was I saying?
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey, it's Michael. You guys are listening to the Paranormal Patio on their hair-raising horror week. Stay tuned for some more scary stuff.
In a sleepy little town in southwest Minnesota lies a house where the inhabitants are not of this world, the Boyd House. Some disturbing behaviors include audible voices and EVPs, equipment interaction, and moving object. Now, for the first time ever, a documentary has been made. Join us as we watch the town and house in the days gone by. Exclusive interviews with investigators as they share their experiences and evidence from their nights at the Boyd House. Check out our Facebook page, Boyd House, or on YouTube on our St. Croix Paranormal page to view this spooky adventure.
Actually, you led to a really natural segue, and I'm going to roll with it. We were talking about Tyler being escorted out of North Carolina, and
That was Kentucky, wasn't it?
no, that was when he went to the location that they thought were the GPS coordinates near Brown Mountain.
That was bizarre. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know to this day how highly they value the balloon stuff. I'm the balloon guy, but when I heard that stuff, I thought, what are the odds that you go to a latitude and longitude? Which, by the way, I have. They gave me a copy of those numbers, and they are a code from a UPS type outfit in Canada. They are not coordinates, although they, you can make coordinates out of if you have enough numbers to do anything. That's the great danger of the secret cipher without buying the book, the complete secret cipher of the Euphonauts. But if you buy the book, you can safely get away with understanding what the numbers are. And I told them, this, because I just did what I do when I'm looking for a parcel to come to me, which is you just Google it, and it goes to FedEx or anyway. This was a service I'd never heard of, but it was I suspect a smaller service in Canada. There are a lot of regionals that basically use the postal service and then pick it up and bring it to your door or whatever they're doing during the age of the Great Plague, or the Lesser Plague. This is
Lesser
not quite
lesser. Hopefully lesser.
Well, let's talk about that next year if we're still either of us talking. My tea has gotten cold. Let me know if my voice goes to backup, and I'll make more tea.
Will do. So anyway, back to Brown Mountain, because you investigated Brown Mountain, right?
Repeatedly. It would have been too much to ask for me not to go somewhere so close, physically close to where I live and where I've lived off and on all my life. So, what I needed was a team. I don't do things alone in the field, and I don't recommend anybody do that, Tyler. I don't recommend anybody do that, because for one thing, if a rock falls on your head, somebody needs to say, hey, a rock fell on his head and now he is dead. Otherwise, his mama is going to worry, and there's no reason to worry because he's dead as a doornail. But the point is that the first time I went to Arabia was with Gene Steinberg and his then wife, Geneva Hagen now, who were both good field investigators, and I don't know how to put this. It was the late 1960s, and I'd already known them for close to 10 years. So, you're with trusted friends in the field, trying to figure out what these lights are or are not. Well, we did an interview with Ralph Lale, that's a whole story, and frankly, an hour and a half episode in and of itself. But why is my taser blinking? Okay, stop blinking. That's good.
What in the world are you doing down there?
No, I'm just charging it, and it has a green light when it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and a blinking red light when it's not. And I don't know, all these things are weird.
Don't touch it.
You have to press a button, and then a light comes on, and then it knocks the living. Well, never mind. And what are my samurai swords doing? They're just sitting, waiting for an intruder that never comes. I so want an intruder. Oh no! They come through the door. I say, look, $100 gold piece. And whack. And I think the building would pay for the carpet, and the police would probably give me a gold watch or something so I could buy another samurai sword. Did you know that they're all made in China now? Even the ones with Japanese labels on it, like Shenhua, which is what I have. They're really well done. They're handmade, but they have that little tiny thing. If you look for it, it says "Made in China." So the next time you need a katana, you're going to have to go to Okinawa and do the Kill Bill thing, right?
Sure.
So, where was I? Oh, yes, I was on Mount Arabia. So we got an interesting interview, and then I love to go to secondary witnesses, because if you talk to a person who has an absolutely outlandish story, somewhat made more credible by the fact that there are dancing lights on the mountain adjacent to where his outer space rock shop museum was. Mm-hmm. Gene interviewed him on tape and refuses to allow me to use the photo of him interviewing Lale. And I thought, I just got it in my head. I need to come back to do a much more thorough investigation. Well, I believe I can date the exact time, the second time I was there, where things got a lot weirder. It was, Christmas Eve, 1968, because that was when the astronauts first orbited the moon.
Right.
And that plays a part in the story. I went with Timothy Green Beckley and the ace investigator of such phenomena, James Willett Moseley, son of General George Van Horn Moseley, a notorious anti-Semite. But that's not part of this. Who lived up the block from me, actually, but not in the Jewish section where I am, so he wouldn't have anything to do with that. That's not important. Jim hated his father, and his father hated him, so that was, he was totally the opposite. But he told me some tales of whoa, boy. So Jim and Jim's daughter, who was, I think she was 10 or 12 at the time, and Beckley and I decided, well, they have this spot because this phenomena has been going on for 1,000 years. We'll go, since they had not been with me the last time, we'll go interview Lael again, and Jim will like his museum because he has a shrunken head similar to the one that Jim dug up in South America during his grave robbing days before ufology. All this is public record. It's in his book, curiously from what do they call that press? They basically believe in nothing. So they were glad to publish Moseley's book, Confessions of a UFO Grave Robber, or something like that. It was not a bestseller, but it was it was honest. Hey, Jim was he started out being a very wealthy guy with no known means of support other than the estate of his mother, actually, who was a shipping magnate or had inherited a shipping bunch of ships. So, a shipping concern. And so he first dabbled in South American antiquities, otherwise known as grave robbing, and it was illegal, and he did get thrown in jail down there once, and there's an amusing account of his time in jail in Peru, a letter he sent to Barker, which Barker, with the discretion of these guys, published. So if you ever run across a well-named little scandal thing called UFO 69, get it. It's full of the stuff that I talk about that nobody else talks about. And it's all there in black and white. A little green too, I think, on one page. But that's, Steinberg gave me a copy of it, so I assume it was probably a print run of 20? People don't realize that pre-internet, those of us who did zines, as they were called, and are still called by some people in science fiction circles, you had to do it all yourself. And I know doing a program like this all by yourself is not an easy task, but imagine, first of all, you had the problem of material, and if you get the material together, then you have the problem of printing. Well, my dad was an executive at a major shoe company, so their presses turned to publishing little UFO and occult magazines by night with the assistance of his secretary, who obviously couldn't say, I can't do this isn't part of my job. So
Did your dad know?
Of course.
That's awesome.
He did.
Oh, that's awesome.
He would bring home old typewriters that, they were going to throw out or whatever. And when I was little, like 4, he brought home I got to be careful with this, a dictaphone. Do you know what that is? It sounds much more interesting than it is. It made little plastic records for dictation. dictaphone. Yes. And there were, I've since lost it. Wouldn't matter because it wouldn't play on anything. But there were recordings of me and my late sainted friend Bill at the age of 4 or 5 going on and fighting, doing the latest heavyweight boxing championship bout between us. It was nice to listen to, and I still had that late enough in life that, you know, I can remember the content. So anyway, so we went and talked to Lael, and sure enough, Jim looked at Lael's desiccated corpse and said, "Oh, I got one of these in my museum on Rose Lane in Key West." And that seemed to disappoint Lael, who thought it was from outer space. After Lael, it's beginning to snow. Jim is driving. It's his car. And he said there's a point on the material that I've read that's much further up the mountain and has a much better view of the lights. And I'm looking at the glazed over road and looking at Jim to see how glazed he was. And I said, okay, let's do that. And we slowly inched our way up this mountain, the name of which I don't remember, but it was the mountain directly adjacent to Round Mountain. So it was the best possible view. And from my previous trip, I knew that you would also see, if you got down in the valley between the two, there were people, reputable sounding people that I talked to who said, yeah, I've seen those things up close and they act like they're intelligent. They, will cross your path, take a look at you, and then go on. And I think, that adds to Lael's story, but it also adds to the intrigue about Arabian Mountain period. So we went up to this high level where it was quite chilly. This is North Carolina on Christmas Eve. And I remember thinking, this is a hell of a thing for Betty Mosley to be spending Christmas Eve doing, but I didn't say anything. His daughter, not mine, So we spent about 2 hours up there, and indeed we were seeing the lights, not just on Brown Mountain as such, some of which were cars. Some of which, on the roads on the side of the mountain, some of which were not. They were very strange, plasma type things, but dancing around and then going what appeared to be into the mountain. And then there were ones that were down below us where, in that area where our witnesses had said that they had been seen these things up close and personal, and the things had gotten pretty personal as well, and then gone on about their ghostly business. So, after a certain amount of time, it was obvious that was all we were going to see. That was enough.
Yeah.
And we started back down, and the road was only ice. And I'm sitting on the right side of the back seat. And on the left side, there's the other lane. And then there's this fence that essentially is there because there are so many sightseers at the designated sightseeing place to see the Brown Mountain lights. So people can go, look at that. That must be a Brown Mountain light. Yep, that must be. That'll be $3 for the information. Thank you. And I'm looking out my frozen window at the glazed road, and about, 2 to 3 feet away from me is an abyss that if we slid over it, no one would know for years. Well, at least until the spring thaw when our corpses thawed out. So I'm sitting there quietly, and I think Beckley and Mosley are talking, and I think Betty had gone to sleep. So I'm just, hoping that we get back to where we belong. Get back. And we did. And we decided to have a little reconnoiter in Beckley's hotel room. And he turns on the TV because I guess he was calling his mother and arguing with her about, but you're in the warm states. And he's saying, I don't know her half of the conversation, but he's saying, yes, Mom, it's the warm states, but it's the cold season. And I guess he turned the TV on. I don't know. Maybe that was a separate event. They do tend to mesh together after years, let alone that many years. But on the TV is a picture of the Earth as seen from the moon. And one of the astronauts is saying, as they come around to the near side of the moon, and thus, they're within radio range, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was unformed and void, and darkness was upon the... And around 2 paragraphs in, I thought, oh, God, they're marooned in orbit around the moon. And they're praying. This was not an auspicious night. But no, that was part of their, NASA was very big in those days to saying, don't worry, people. Just because Yuri Gagarin said he didn't find God up there doesn't mean that you have to give up your religion and start eating, dancing and drinking wine and, doing all those other evil things. But, that was just their standard thing. But I thought that was a weird experience. And I don't remember there was nothing remarkable that happened after that. I went to my room and went to bed and was awakened by a knock at my door. And I don't need towels. No towel, por favor. So I opened the door, and it's, this is the weird part. The weird part is hard to communicate because it's really weird. It's a mind hoodoo. A guy is standing at the door. Now, the guy who's standing at the door said something by way of introduction. I don't have any idea what he said, but he had on dark clothing. He was a man in black. I mean, everything about him. What did Alan, the experienced ufologist, field investigator, occultist, blah, 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 what did I think about it? I didn't. I said, come in. And he sat down and he said something about Ralph Lale. And of course, the obvious first question is, who the hell are you? How the hell did you know where I am? And what the hell are you doing in my room? None of that occurred to me. And by the way, can I take your picture? And, but I don't know his name. I didn't ask. I don't know how he found out where I was or more to the point, where I had been the previous night. Because believe me, there was no one else on that icy road other than Jim Mosley and the Daredevil twins. It was just not something that rational people would do. On the other hand, we did it, but and he starts off with some sort of fairly reasonable question, except for the fact how did he know that, that I'm not just somebody that's there bird watching? I mean, he knew everything that he needed to know about me, my visit, the purpose of the visit, and all of that, without any credentials, or he didn't flash a badge or anything like that. It's just, it was really weird. And I was, for the first of 2 times in my entire life, totally hoodooed. The other time was by a flag level ex-Scientologist who was trying to get in the pants of my girlfriend at the time, which he succeeded in doing, but that's a totally different story, and he's dead now. So,
we'll let sleeping dogs lie on that one.
Well, he's not a dog. He's decomposing, but that's okay. But in any case, he did a very good job. This guy did a good job without any of the usual things. I mean, I know the NLP Scientology tricks, so it takes a lot for me to be fooled by that, because the first trick I see, I'm alerted to it, But this guy didn't, it is knocked on the door and I don't know what was done. Then he starts in on Lael. And, of course, that raises the question, how does he know that I've visited Lael multiple times? Lael could have told him, but Lael didn't know where I was staying, not even what hotel or what town, or for all he knew, we went back to wherever we came from, which I think Beckley went on to look at the ghost light in some railroad, and I went back to Atlanta, and Jim went back to Key West. He knew too much about me. Forget the flying saucers. He knew too much about me. And he's dumping on Lael, saying, he's a moonshiner. And I'm thinking where I am in this little hick town in, what's that, North Carolina? Yeah, North Carolina. And I think, who isn't a moonshiner here? But I didn't say that. Say, oh, well, that makes him a bad witness, right? And the guy goes on and on and on, dumping on Lael and basically saying, you need to not be around him. He's bad company, which I suspect if there was any purpose in the visitation, that was it. And he leaves, and I can't remember how long it took me, but it was like, what did I just do, Mr. Experienced Investigator? I'll tell you what I did. Let me go to the mirror. Okay, there I am. I fucked up really big time. And that's the story of my Mount Arabia experiences, and they're, of course, vintage, but people that have been there much more recently than that are they basically have the same type of experiences, weird stuff. It's not always the same form. Somebody would have a really good book if they didn't gild the lily like some of the magazine articles that show car lights and saying the Brown Mountain lights. Well, they are cars, and they're on Brown Mountain, and they do have lights. It's the law at night. So, and that's my Brown Mountain Man in Black story. To chill the Halloweenies. Won't be doing very much treating, but they may be tricking a lot. Because if he knocks on your door and says, so you were listening to that broadcast with Alan Greenfield, and I know the color of your underwear, and more to the point, your wife's underwear.
Oh, no.
At which point you throttle the guy, which is something that has never happened. And I've always wondered, given, how intimidating some of them are, and that they're usually visiting people out in the middle of nowhere, why somebody hasn't just said, well, excuse me while I get my notepad, come out with their shotgun and say, I think it's time for you to leave now or I'm going to blow you straight to hell. And he says, good night and thanks for buying the Witness magazine and whatever the pitch is. And that's it. Should I go warm up my tea or have I exhausted my welcome? Tell you what, I'll go warm up the tea. I'm going to be sorry about this tomorrow. I'm going to have total laryngitis and I will be cursing you, but it won't have any effect. I won't have any voice. It's like when I had laryngitis when I was running an art supply store and I had like 30 employees and that day when I yelled at my employees, it was, take the front register. And they laugh at me and, you're fired. No, it doesn't count if you whisper it. So hold on for 2 minutes or sing. I always find singing soothes the savage beast or breast or, whichever.
Yeah, you don't want to hear me singing.
Hey gang, I'm Lonnie Scott, host of Weird Web Radio, and you're listening to Hair Raising Horror Week. Stay weird out there, my friends.
I'm back.
You are. I heard strange beeping tones over the line, and it could have been the microwave, but it could have been Indrid Cold. Who knows?
It was Indrid Cold or my microwave.
Indrid Warm.
Yeah. I don't know him. He's
one of the new ones.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. There's a certain logic to it. The interesting thing, if you follow it, is that the center of the Mothman cases now is around the airport in Chicago, one of the busiest airports in the world, and it's been going on now for 3 years.
Yeah.
And as of today, it's still going on. I mean, when I say today, I mean today.
Yes. I talked to Lon Strickler on the show several weeks back, and we talked about that a lot.
He's the best non-fantasy news source for this stuff that I know of. So I'm a big supporter and also a big reprinter of his stuff because I think it's really good.
Yeah. He's definitely well ensconced into the case, that's for sure.
Well, that's good. I mean, there was a time when you had a lot of UFO and cryptozoology people in the Chicago area, but I don't think that's true anymore. It tends to move around. It's like there. Mm-hmm. Atlanta was a big center at one time. Now Asheville, North Carolina, I hear is, become a thing. And
why do you think that is? Why do you think there's these clusters every so often?
I think they probably follow something that is a pattern, but not necessarily a pattern that we can discern. If you want me to theorize, I think that we are in constant, very, very, very close contact with multiple other realities. But by the nature of most of the scientific versions of theories about what these alternate universes are, you can't touch them under normal circumstances. They could be right here in your room or on your patio, as the case may be, and you would not be directly aware of them. but they can at times glitch. Call it a glitch in the matrix. It's based on, that same notion, or a variation of it. And you get a period of time where there's a portal between here and other, not necessarily the same other. And sometimes it's primitive creatures, and sometimes it's UFOs, and sometimes it's ghosts and goblins, and sometimes it's a matter of people here disappearing on a wholesale scale.
Yeah.
Happens a lot.
It does.
And then the portal is no longer there. There are magical portals that you can form and hopefully close when you get through with them, but that's not quite the same thing. This is a physical entryway, often in the mouth of a cave, sometimes just in the middle of a city. Sometimes it depends. And what it depends on, frankly, I don't know. But something brings them into being. Now, there's a whole secondary question there as to, is it intentional on the part of what's it's from dimension 79245-3, or is it in fact Dr. Zarkov calling the Earth from Mongo? I mean, either is just as good a theory as far as I go. I don't think we'll ever solve that, but we can come to understand that the phenomena does come in cycles, and it's going to vary in terms of its direct content. Like, is a Thunderbird and a Mothman-type humanoid the same thing? Seen under different circumstances or by different people, or are they different things altogether? I really don't like the term Bigfoot, because the term in and of itself, taken out of context, is ludicrous. Oh, it's a Bigfoot. And I would prefer to say they're a form of large hairy cryptid, and leave it at that, because you want credibility with people, and they seem to appear and disappear in the same manner as UFOs and ufonauts. So
yeah, I prescribe to that same theory as well. When I was a kid, I remember thinking just naturally, without any background whatsoever into this stuff, that, they've never found a body of one of these quote unquote Bigfoot. And so there's some reason why, and, maybe they just kind of bleed through. And that was what I operated on, as a child and a teenager. And then now into my adulthood, it's a resounding, that's got to be it.
Well, it makes a lot more sense than they're the survival of some primitive race, which is not often stated, but I think that's the nuts and bolts theory, that they're, I think that we have learned a great deal about primitive humans that sort of contradict that image of the big, hairy, smelly creature that Neanderthals used to be thought of as. They apparently were so civilized that the Homo sapiens, in their infinite wisdom, wiped them from the face of the earth.
Indeed.
Other scary stuff that is scary but true. That'll be the name of my History Channel show. Scary but true with Alan Greenfield, star.
I'm not sure that the world's ready for that, because who knows what that'll get turned into.
Yeah.
Not so much in the vein of scary, but this is something that I heard, and I don't remember where I heard it.
I didn't know her. I was out of the country at the time. I have witnesses. I have witnesses on top of witnesses.
No, last year I went through Atlanta. I did not stop because having stopped, I feel I would still be somewhere in Atlanta. The traffic is vast, to say the least.
I hear. I haven't been out of lockdown since, other than to ride my bicycle around 2 miles, and that's right on the property that I'm on. Since the whole COVID thing started. So
yeah. Well, this was Memorial Day of last year, so this was still pre-pandemic. We drove down to Florida from Illinois, where I am, and we're big fans of the TV program and the comic books, The Walking Dead, which is all filmed there just south of Atlanta in Sonoya. And I had heard that you had done some UFO investigation in Sonoya. Is that true?
It doesn't ring a bell, but it's possible. There are a lot of things in The Walking Dead that have Easter eggs about Atlanta, like the 4th season, 5th season, where they found Terminus.
Yes.
Terminus was the original name for Atlanta.
Right.
It was the terminus of the railroad line from Decatur, Georgia, which grew into Marysville and then became Atlanta. And then the Union Army came in and did renovation.
I wish I had the source for that. I don't remember. This was several months ago, and I had always thought if I ever had the chance I was going to ask you about that. But
and I would not by that town name, but if you can give me a couple of geographical markers or something.
Oh my.
I mean, I've done investigations, like all over the state, and that it hasn't been my specialty. I mean, I'm much more interested in the cases that you can really sort of sink your teeth into. And most of these are lights in the sky cases. I did investigate the Manchester, Georgia flap, principally because it's centered on the Georgia State Patrol headquarters on top of the one hill in Manchester, Georgia. So I just went straight to the State Patrol and hung out with them. And the officer on duty while I was there with my friend George, who has disappeared completely from the face of the earth, no surprise there, he gets a call that a house is being robbed, and it was his house. And he was all, flailing around and calling the sheriff or whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, why does this always happen with me here? What do I do? I mean, I'm not a lightning rod or anything like that. I think maybe it's time to go while Officer Pup here has a conniption fit.
What are the odds? You get the call that there's someone's broken into a house and it's your house.
The odds are incalculable.
Yeah, that's insane. Okay, well,
I keep getting reports from around my hometown, which is on the Savannah River, which is always a hot spot for UFOs and related phenomena. But then it's also a hot spot for, when I was a kid, it was where they were making the plutonium triggers for thermonuclear bombs, one of the two places in the country. So it put us on the map, the Soviet target map. So, but it also apparently was on something else's map too, because I still get cases from there. I have an informant in the town, which it turns out he's the local MUFON representative, but he lets me know and he gets pictures. I mean, it's just routine in that area for things to show up. And I've been seeing a lot of cryptid reports all over the state of Georgia. So, I'm not totally surprised.
To change gears a little bit, I know, you've spoken a lot about Gray and Jim, and Gray was, pretty deep into the Mothman investigation. Were you friends with him at the time?
Yep.
Did you investigate Point Pleasant at the time?
Yep.
Do you have any good stories about that? Not necessarily scary stories, but...
No, the only story that I have about that period is the year following, which I guess was the giant saucer show that Mosley put on at the Commodore Hotel in New York, which was torn down for a Trump property. But not that year, but later. Fine old hotel, just the sort of thing that they would tear down. But in any case, that was like far and away the largest UFO convention ever held anywhere at any time. So the following year, we did a more modest thing and had it in Charleston, West Virginia. Yes. And of course, Gray was there and blah, 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 blah. And then there was the Man in Black. And that's the only other encounter I've ever had, because I confronted this guy. But I think I've told that story so many places that you could probably tell it better than me. But suffice to say, this guy followed people around at the convention. There is a story that Gray hired an actor to do that, but it doesn't explain several aspects of the case. One is that when I confronted this guy, I deliberately did it very abruptly, a little bit aggressively. And I mean, I didn't beat the guy up, but I did get in front of him, and ask him a question or two, in which he said, "I am a man in black in training." And I said, "That's very interesting. What does it pay?" No, I didn't say that. I'm lying. But the way he went around the corner and just was gone on a Sunday in Charleston, West Virginia in 1968, I think it was. You have to understand West Virginia in 1968 to understand that on a Sunday, as my father often put it, about a bad day in business, you could have shot a cannonball down Main Street and not hit anything. So I don't know what happened to the guy. And the other thing is, which is, I only know anecdotally, I've not interviewed a witness, but this same guy supposedly appeared to Mary Heyer, who was very interested in the Mothman thing and was a reporter for the Athens, Ohio Messenger, which is right across the Ohio River from,
right.
And then years later, a Man in Black case, not an important one, but, significant only in the fact that the description matches the same guy, only the guy that I saw appeared to be quite young, like 20-ish, maybe?
Yeah, I've seen the picture.
Okay, well, he looked the same, was dressed the same, had the same stupid hat.
Yeah.
And I wanted that hat, but that's not important. And this was years later, so, if that story is true, then he is one of those tulpas, as I call them, and as the Tibetan Buddhists call tulpas. He's a thought form that something sends out. And Gray Barker was many things, but he was not a tulpa sender.
Back at Phenomenacon that the Newkirks did whenever you were on the first one, they've since done another.
I know. I know. Yeah. And, they still like me.
I'm sure they do. But anyway, I was the one who asked the question about the the photo appearing in Woodrow Derenberger's daughter's book being credited to you for taking a photo of Dimo Hassan. If you remember back that far.
I'm talking to you about the early 1960s, and you're asking if I can remember last year. I'm just not sure what specifically you're talking about there. Which photo?
There in Tanya Derenberger's book, Beyond Lanulos, there's several photos. Oh, if it's in the back or towards the middle, I don't remember. I think it's towards the middle. And it's a picture, that picture that you took, like you grabbed the guy's camera or your own camera or something and you took a picture.
No, it was my camera.
It was your camera.
It was my Yashica J7. I'll never forget that camera. That was the best I ever had.
But you had taken that picture and it got put in her book and it said this photo of possibly of Dimo Hassan taken by Alan Greenfield at Charleston, West Virginia, whatever conference it was called. And I had asked in PhenomenaCon, they had the live chat going on. I said, I'd like to know what he has to say about, this picture he took of Dimo Hassan. And you had basically just told the story. He said, I never said it was Dimo Hassan, and I don't know why it's in the book or something to that effect. But
well, I mean, I have no quarrel with her, and she probably had a shortage of visual materials to use. And I never asked a name. That I was more interested in a what rather than a name. A name would especially if it were something. Oh, I'm Carl Ardo. How you doing? Glad to meet you, Carl. I hear you know Woody Derenberger, and you two lift a pint now and again. Oh, yeah, we do. It's all hooch that's made by that Ralph Lale. He's in North Carolina.
In Tanya's defense, I think it said it could possibly have been Dimo Hassan. I don't think she came right out and said, Alan Greenfield picture of Dimo Hassan.
Well, I didn't ask, so that's as good an explanation as any. If it looked familiar to her, and she has had communication with the crew of the good ship, whatever. The good ship what's it, then maybe that's the story I'm talking about, that the same guy was recognized years later and then years and years later. So quite possibly I didn't know, and what I saw fit the description of a tulpa which would have no name, or would give whatever name occurred to it, or that it was told to give for the duration of its existence, which was assuming it just discorporated when it went around that corner, and that's not the only possibility. Then it only existed for the convention.
Right. And then the convention after, and and all the conventions and sightings to come.
Well, there is that.
It's a little suspicious.
When we did the Arabia workings, a couple of times we got buzzed by black helicopters, and I thought, is there any place that I can go?
Hi everyone, this is Megan.
Hey, it's Michael.
What's up, guys? I'm Dan, and you're listening to Paranormal Patio.
The Paranormal Patio.
Paranormal Patio.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Back in my political days, my then 4 or 5-year-old son, Alex, was in a demonstration against nuclear weapons. A real controversial subject, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Don't blow me up, I think was his sign. And I see an unmistakable, just as Men in Black are not easy to mistake. Back in Mr. Hoover's time, an FBI agent might as well have been wearing a shirt that says, "Hello, I'm an FBI agent."
Yes.
And an FBI agent took a picture of him. And some of the people that were in this, it was on Einstein's birthday. any excuse for a picket line or a demonstration. So I walked up to the guy and I said, "Look, I know you're FBI. This is my son. He's 5 years old. He's carrying a sign I gave him. He can't write. He's just barely doing his letters. And you want to put him on file somewhere? Do you have a family?" Blah, 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 blah. And he just never changed expressions. So
wow.
They are men in black, too. Of course, they're not now. They look like tennis players or something.
A parallel I've not drawn in my own research.
That story comes from some footage from a camera in the hall of a hotel.
Yeah.
And that was the Mossad. And they have tennis rackets and they got on tennis clothes and they're practically whistling their way down the hall. And then you find that some big Arab potentate has met his end mysteriously, and there's no one around but the people from the tennis association. So, well,
you got to watch out for those tennis players, man.
Yeah, those tennis players hang a wicked racket. Say that 3 times, and Rumpelstiltskin will appear.
If he will spin some straw into gold for me, I'm all for it.
Yeah, but there's a price.
That's true. There always is a price, Alan. There's always a price.
That's what I tell my magical students when I can have the magical students. I say, just realize that anything that you do successfully has a price. I don't think it's somebody's price, but I think that it's part of the energy of the whole thing, that you have to, in some sense, pay the piper.
I agree. And I think that is something that is left out of the Hollywood fantasy version of a lot of the occult. In that,
unfortunately,
always,
yeah.
And then people get this misconception that, I can blah, 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 and no consequences. And they try.
Try Awaken the Shadow Man and see what prices people may pay. That's the movie with the creepy kid who I saw in some other movie just recently.
The creepy kid.
I don't know what to call him. I don't know his name, but he's a very recognizable and very creepy kid. No offense if he happens to be a fan. No offense. Complete secret cipher, the Euphonauts, a new hairstyle. Everything will be fine. Lose the eyebrows.
Going back to the secret cipher, would you like to take a few minutes to promote your work and get some information out to folks who may not be aware of how to come across such things?
Okay, let me mention first, and very briefly, if you are well grounded in the occult magical tradition, I just yesterday got a copy of the short book, Dr. Randolph's Magical Elixir, the story of the 19th century genius who created Western sexual magic, by Alan Greenfield. And, but it's for advanced students, clearly, and people that just want to know the history of magic, and also something that doesn't get discussed a lot, which is the racism that exists in the occult community from the year 1 on, that frequently gets left out of the amusing stories about the life of various people. Dr. Randolph was black and actually was a participant in the anti-slavery movement, and post-Civil War did some educational work with freed slaves, but he was also a master of magic. and his work is not credited in the ancient order of nonsense list of saints, but he should be. And the fact that he's not, and the fact that I can't find any reference to him in the work of the great master Crowley is probably because Crowley was a bigot. And so
true.
He was good with the ideas. It may be that it wasn't a direct transmission because the founder of that order was Karl Kellner, and he was a member of the Hermetic Brotherhood of Light, which followed Randolph's curriculum meticulously. And in turn, Theodore Royce, who was Crowley's initiator, may have learned it and passed it on without mentioning the source. Indeed, if he knew the source, I mean, there's not too much to be said for the German occult community of the late 19th and early 20th century, since it tended to be enfolded into a certain movement which probably didn't want me to come into existence, and not for the usual reasons. But
yes.
They're dead, and I'm not yet.
Thank goodness.
Which?
Both.
Oh, well, 2 weeks ago. Never mind. That's okay. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that largely thanks to the push that was given by the people that worked on the excellent TV series Hellier, highly recommended, my magnum opus, if you want to call it that, The Complete Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, has enjoyed a surge of interest all across the world. And suddenly I've become almost famous as opposed to almost obscure. So if you haven't read it, probably don't get one of the earlier editions. First of all, the original edition from Illuminate Press is probably a collector's item, and it probably is outrageously expensive, and I don't get royalties on that anymore. First of all, Illuminate Press doesn't exist anymore, and there's a sinister story that goes with that as well. But any of the editions that you get other than that don't have both books, which were originally conceived as one. That's Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts and Secret Rituals of the Men in Black. They're meant to be read sequentially, and I understand my publisher is working on a sort of way to work with the cipher once you get to it. Thankfully, people are actually working with the Secret Cipher now, yes. Whereas I expected when the original edition came out that that's what people would do, and they'd write me and say, "Oh, you're full of it because this doesn't do anything," or, "Well, I found my way to the planet Piwam, and it's all good." You know. Thank you for sending me to Piwam. Can you send me a bus ticket home? I didn't get any of that. People. It was favorably reviewed by a few reviewers, other than Jim Mosley, who panned it, but he didn't like anything that wasn't, straight up. So I wasn't, devastated by that. However, when his book came out, I got, never mind. Let's not go there. Grave robbing son of a general. That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
And so if you get the Complete Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts in the Paranoia Press edition, you can get it from any of the, as far as I know, any of the online booksellers, distributors, whatever they are, Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever. And in Europe, Same thing, because a lot of them have European affiliates, and we sell as many in Europe as we sell here, although we hear about it a lot later. So if you don't have it, get it, work with it, and feel free to write me a review directly to me, and I'll be glad to assist. Also, my publisher has put something up that is very useful to people that have read that, which is I almost said secret decoder ring. Okay, there's a secret. Yeah. Well, you weren't a member of Captain Midnight's 1967 Secret Squadron, so you don't have a decoder ring, but I do. And I would decode it every week, and it would be something like, drink lots of Ovaltine after 2 hours of working on decoding it. So, anyway, this is a decoder for the cipher in the complete secret cipher, the Euphonauts. So you don't have to work on it manually. It's called the Azure Lidded Woman, because ALW are the first three letters, which actually was how the Jim Lees and his group in England cracked the code after 75 years of just staring at the page. So there's much you can do with it, and there will be more to come.
Great.
If you have a Barnes & Noble store, they either have it in stock or can order it. Primarily, we get online business, and I must say, yes, business has been very good to me for the last year, and I owe that to my various hosts and to Hellier, or not to the town. I'm sure you can. If you can't, I don't know, because I've dropped it in about 15 times, including an illegal hypnosis session that you won't remember. You will not remember.
But Alan, you said you were warming tea. I knew those beeps were sinister in origin.
Yes. That was the UFO outside the window that comes late at night, and it has this guy dressed up in a red suit, and I'm having flashbacks to somebody else's youth.
Oh, man. Well, Alan, this has been a good time. I am outside in my patio, and it's getting quite chilly, and I think I'm going to have to head inside.
Well, I'm outside in your patio, too, spiritually, so I guess I'll call it a day. Pray that I don't get laryngitis from this, because I've enjoyed it immensely. Let me know when this is on, so that all of my fans can tune in, and I'll be glad to publicize it on my MeWe page.
That will be terrific. I will send you actually a promotional picture that will be themed with the rest of the guests. So
you didn't take a picture of me tonight, did you? I don't have any pants on.
Well, you'll find out the week of Halloween, Hair-Raising Horror Week.
Well, hey, I'm a man among men. How shall I be worthy to minister the virtues to the brethren? Okay. This has been great. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time, and hopefully you're not cursing me in the morning whenever you wake up.
I won't curse you. I will bless you, because I'm a good guy.
I appreciate that, Alan. I do appreciate that.
And so are you. We're all good guys in a very bad situation.
A very bad situation.
If you haven't voted, people, vote. For God's sake, vote. You may not have a vote next time. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Alan. Have a good night. Get some tea. Get some rest.
Both? Okay.
Yes. At the same time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Until next time, keep the fire going.